everyone, and a massive welcome to this pop-up live stream. My name's Simon Linstead. I'm the founder and the host of the InfoSec Live community. We were founded around 13 months ago. We've grown to about 3,000 cyber professionals, all helping each other raise their game. And this event is going to be exciting. Without too much further ado, I have two exciting guests for us today with the pop-up topic of MFA INSECURITY. But before we get on to that, couple of bits of housekeeping actually. Firstly, anyone watching live, it's the hottest day ever recorded in the UK today. I think we're currently sitting at about 40 degrees in my garden. So it is Dress Down Monday. I'm wearing a t-shirt. I don't have a suit on. For that, I apologize. And the second piece of housekeeping is I should actually be working for the firm I'm working for at the moment, which is Bramford Technology Labs. So a massive thank you to them for giving me the time off basically today to host this event. So before we bring them on, bit of background about our guests. I'm sure most of you know both of them, but the first guest is someone you should definitely know. It's Roger Grimes, who's a 30-plus year senior computer security consultant and cybersecurity architect. He's also written 13 books, 9 solo, 4 co-written, and over 1,100 national magazine articles on computer security. He frequently gets interviewed for radio shows, podcasts, magazines, and TV. So we are super, super lucky to have Roger with us today. And our second guest is Aaron Lax, who in his own words is a father, a geek, a realist about today and the future. And in reality, one of the most forward-thinking and unique individuals I've met. And also very, very proud to call him a friend of mine. So he's got extensive experience in sysadmin, passion along with a deep depth of knowledge in cyberspace. This is going to be an epic debate. Let's bring our guests on and get this started. Here we go. Roger, massive welcome. Aaron,
hello.
Welcome too. So before we get started, I see that we've got lots of people in the chat already. So a quick shout out to Roy, Carey, see you both in there. Thanks ever so much for jumping in. Brian as well, thank you. So Aaron was having some connectivity issues before we started. So I'm going to start off to Roger, Aaron. Just
that one.
Have you fixed it? I think you're still a bit glitchy. So I'll start off with Roger and we'll see how it goes. So you are, yeah, you're lagging behind a bit. I'm not sure why. So let's start off with Roger. Roger, for those that don't know who you are, which I'm sure is a few people, please tell them a bit about your background.
Well, yeah, I started off as a PC guy, PC network technician, network manager, worked myself up to VP of IT. And that was after a career in accounting and other stuff. And but really the whole time since 1987, I've been fighting hackers and malware, starting with Apple viruses back in 1987 and DOS viruses in 1987, 1988. And then it was Windows viruses and stuff. And I've worked for different companies. I've had my own companies. I was a penetration tester for 20 years and broke into every company that hired me to break into them in an hour or less, except for one company that took me 3 hours once. But I worked for Microsoft for 10, 11 years, and I've been writing and I really do love the computer security industry and different I'm not an expert in everything, but I do, been doing it for 34 years. So I know a lot about it. And I am, there's different topics like MFA or quantum or identity management or hacking or malware that really I get excited with. I work for KnowBe4 now. That's the world's largest security awareness training company. They try to help people not to be socially engineered. I've been there for going on 5 years and really love it. And I get paid to speak and write, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, we were actually having a quick chat before we came online. I mean, for those that know me, I've been in the industry like 2 minutes, just under 2 years. And the field itself is absolutely massive. So I think to be a specialist in everything is pretty impossible. But the one thing you did say offline earlier, which you don't mind me mentioning, is how privileged you feel to be doing what you're doing. And I think this industry, for someone with a financial services background, not quite accountancy, but nearly, it's such a breath of fresh air when it comes to people prepared to give back, helping others. It really is something I've never seen before.
Are you ready for this, Simon? And it's going to literally, my life's goal is to make the internet significantly more secure. And I have not done that. But I wake up every day and that is my goal. And I'm going to retire in about 10 years. But if I haven't done it, I'm going to feel like my career was a failure. It literally is what drives me every day, is attempting to make the internet safer for our kids, our grandkids, our parents and grandparents. It's what drives me every day.
It's definitely a full-time job, Roger.
Yeah. And it's tough to be an influencer, right? It's tough to influence
Yeah.
global policy. Well, even national policy, global policy. But I'm trying. I'm in the trenches fighting every
I
single
mean,
day.
it does feel like the trenches as well. I mean, back to my limited knowledge, but being at RSA this year, it opened my mind or my eyes to how much money is spent on marketing by some of the companies in this space, which seems to heavily drive certain areas of engagement with enterprise level and below clients. And I think having people like yourself who are working in the trenches and trying to shout the good fight and talk about the real story is very, very important. So, Aaron, hopefully we can hear you now. And if we can, please tell everyone a bit about yourself.
All right. Well, that's a question. You cannot.
Well, we can kind of give it a go again. I'll be quiet. I think there's a bit of a delay, so I'll just try closing my mouth for 10 seconds, which is hard.
Well, obviously, I'm a system administrator, computer program, database management, and
Aaron, we can't hear you at all, my friend. Can I make an executive decision and maybe get you to jump off for a second, try and sort that connection out? And in the meantime, I'll try and think of something insightful to say to Roger about MFA, or hope that he picks up the bat. So I don't know if you agree, Roger, but I couldn't hear what Aaron was saying.
It was tough. It was tough.
Yeah. Okay. So MFA is a subject that you talk about a lot. I've seen you talking about it in public. Do you want to just cover off what the areas of concern are around that?
Yes. So let me state by saying that multi-factor authentication, and that could be, that you have a little USB key you plug in, or you could be getting a code on your phone, or have a smart card, or biometrics, or getting some code or something. Everybody should use phishing resistant MFA whenever they can to fight hackers. It's a good thing. And, unfortunately, you're not going to be able to use MFA everywhere, even if you did. I think the most popular MFA in the world, Google Authenticator or Microsoft Authenticator, work on less than 2% of the world's websites and services. But you should use MFA. MFA probably decreases 15-30% of overall hacking. Now, let me say, a lot of companies and people say, oh, it defeats 99% of hacking. That's a bunch of rubbish. But it does defeat probably the biggest of any single thing. It probably of any single technical thing, it probably defeats the most. So it's a good thing. Everybody should have it. But most people, when they get MFA, think that, oh, they're magically protected or something. And I've been I wrote a book called Hacking Multi-Factor Authentication. I write about it all the time. I've been giving webinars on it for 4 years. And I can tell you that when I show people how easy it is to hack around multi-factor authentication, people's jaws are just like, and I'm not talking about end users. I'm talking about sysadmins and people that bought it. When I was at RSA with you, Simon, and every day for the first 3 days, a keynote speaker who I respect said that MFA stops 99% of attacks. And it's not true. It's not even close to true. It will never be true. But it's that sort of overselling of the technology that makes people feel invulnerable when they have it. So they have their key and, oh, I can't be hacked. I'm so good. And it's not true. And it's funny, I emailed some of those people and said, listen, it's correct to say that it stops a large portion. And that's really the most you can say. But saying it stops 99%, you're saying a foolish thing that isn't true. And it's just when people get hacked, and so Microsoft just released a story a couple of days ago where 10,000 of their customers got hacked, and many of them protected by MFA, and they still got hacked. I said, when you tell people that, oh, when I have this thing, that it makes me so much less likely to be hacked, when they get hacked, they start feeling like they got sold a bill of goods, right? And they're like, this guy told me to do that. He told me to get antivirus. That didn't work. He told me to get a firewall. That didn't work. He told me to get a VPN. That didn't work. Then he told me to get MFA, and MFA is going to stop 99% of it, and I still get hacked.
And we're back to, I think, the point I mentioned earlier, where the market's being driven by shiny boxes that have big marketing budgets behind them. And as you clearly know, it's people's knowledge awareness that is the most important thing. And I saw a post on LinkedIn over the weekend. Someone said, if you were given the remit to look after small mom and pop type stores, cybersecurity, what would be the first thing that you do for them? And everyone was jumping in with mapping the network and asset registers and all these different things, when really it should be education, shouldn't it?
Yeah, for sure. And I guess, so I worked for Microsoft for 11 years, and I was installing MFA a lot of the times in the most advanced systems, right? All the advanced Microsoft stuff. And I was installing advanced security systems across the board, advanced routers. And let me say, to a T, every one of my customers that I installed that stuff on still got compromised by two things: unpatched software and social engineering. And unpatched software is, I've been studying it for decades, is involved in about 70 to 90% of all successful attacks. Unpatched software, about 20 to 40%. Those two things alone are responsible for 90 to 99% of all successful hacking. Yet, and it's been that way since computers began. I'm almost as old as all computers, right? So I've been doing it since 1987. It was social engineering and unpatched software back then. It still is. And what's amazing is it's at least 90% of all hacking, yet the average company probably devotes maybe 5% of their resources to it. And instead, we're distracted and we're buying these shiny things and technologies and, even MFA that promises this dream. I wrote an article just last week. I said, hovering over a URL will protect you better than MFA. And that's a true statement. But it doesn't mean you shouldn't have MFA. You should have MFA and educate people to hover over links. You need to do both. And so anyways, it was, that's all I'm trying to share is, I think what I really try to share is, like you just said, what works for mom and pops. It's not the shiny Cisco or the VPN is not going to work. If antivirus and VPNs and MFA and all that stuff all worked, we wouldn't have computer viruses or hackers today. We'd all install it and we could call it a day and go home. Our whole industry would be gone. I was like, if it was true that MFA defeated 99% of hacking, RSA would have been about 40 square foot wide.
Yeah.
And
where would all the zero trust and shift left stands go, Roger? I don't mean to mock it because they're all relevant topics, but we're back again to the point that companies are investing money in solutions, not education, and I think that is the biggest danger we've got. But unfortunately, while you've got massive companies with huge marketing budgets throwing money at that, it takes CISOs as well to change their mindsets with regards to what they're going to engage with and how they're going to do the services as well. And I'm doing a series called the CISO Experience at the moment. I think I've spoken to 14 CISOs from the US, and they all agree. Everyone says the same thing. Everyone's in agreement that the budgets are going in the wrong places, but it's how we do anything about that. I'm rambling. Aaron's back. Shall we do a test, Aaron? See if you're working. I think you're muted, but you look like you're going to be all right. Are you muted? Muted. Testing. You can't change the mute? Let me have a look. Let me turn you off and on. There we go. Can you turn it off now? Because your actual feed doesn't look glitchy anymore, Roger, does it? Ironically. And it's do you want to try? We can't hear you, Aaron. Try jumping out again and sorting the microphone out because I think your connection's good. Okay, so.
But you said it right. And what I would say is, that is a problem I would say to all CISOs is, you've got this budget and we can argue whether it's not enough or is enough, but is it being spent in the right places? And I wrote a book a couple of years ago called Data-Driven Defense. Out of the 13 books I've done, it's the only one I really care about. Everything else is done for money. But the Data-Driven Defense book was really, I think, this idea of look at how you're successfully attacked the most and then mitigate those attack measures. And it sounds silly. I'm literally saying you should concentrate on how you're most likely to be attacked and mitigate those. But the thing is, what I found in my career is that almost no one is doing that. In my entire career of consulting with dozens to hundreds of companies a year over, let's say, 20 years, because I wasn't always consulting, right? It took me a while to get enough in this to start consulting. But in over 20 years, only one company that I ever find actually concentrated on how they are actually attacked and align their resource. And it's funny, it's a government agency, and it wasn't any of the ones that anybody would say. And I'm not going to say it out loud because I don't want to sabotage them. They'll get hacked tomorrow and they're like, Roger's an idiot. But only one company out of hundreds ever actually looked at how they're most likely to be attacked and actually focused in that way. So data-driven defense, and you don't need to buy the book. I've got all kinds of, I write about it all the time. It's free on LinkedIn. My ideas, but look at how you're most likely to be attacked. And it's social engineering and unpatched software for the most part. And then see if your IT defense is aligned proportionally. And it is the fact that most companies are hideously misaligned as to why hackers and malware are so successful. And that's one of the things I've tried to drive.
Do you think, obviously we're all influenced by our own experiences, aren't we, as well? And I wonder whether, people in leadership experiences have different backgrounds, different technical backgrounds as well. Does that make a difference to that or not, Roger?
Yeah, but let me, what's wild, what the last couple of years, what I've realized is, because people always say, well, why is it so misaligned? Literally every expert in document, every recommendation, like I started looking through all the major recommendations in the US, but also in the UK and other countries, South Africa. But let's say Sarbanes-Oxley, HIPAA, PCI DSS is a really good example. So PCI DSS, Payment Card Industry Data Security Standard, that's made by Visa and MasterCard. And supposedly any company that's handling credit card data has to apply these PCI DSS standards and their controls. There's like 200 of them. It's 80 pages long. It spends the first 10 to 20 controls is about firewalls, which do not work today. They really don't work that well. To fight social engineering, it's literally in the last set of controls, 3 sentences, 1 control. And let me see, that's not just PCI DSS. It's every single security guide, requirement, law. And like I'll see, I love the Cybersecurity Infrastructure Security Agency in the United States. And the UK has got a pretty good agency too, but oftentimes they'll put out a warning. There's this new ransomware attack, the Roger ransomware, and here's how it attacks you. It attacks you via emails, social engineering, and sometimes they'll throw other stuff, unpatched software, voice calls or whatever. Here's how you need to protect yourself. And there'll be 15 things how to protect yourself, none of which would fight social engineering. So it isn't a surprise that we're not concentrating on social engineering because the experts aren't telling us to concentrate on it. So not only are we doing it wrong, we're teaching others and new people coming into the industry to concentrate on the wrong things. Zero trust. And I love zero trust, but zero trust, you should do zero trust after you take care of social engineering, unpatched software, and get some good.
Isn't zero trust a buzzword for what people like yourself have been trying to do for the last 30 years? Or
yeah, or usually we'll call it extended something, or what do we say? Super experienced firewalls or something, or they'll do X something. But like firewalls and antivirus didn't work, so let's give it a different name and call it extraordinary. Extraordinary. Firewalls are terrible, but the super intelligent AI-driven firewalls.
But Roger, if you've got AI in your business title, you can go to any venture capitalist in the UK and the US, I think, and raise funds pretty quickly. So
I'm a quantum guy. I'm really into quantum computing and quantum cryptography, and it's amazing how many companies just throw the word quantum in, and it will work. Like literally, it does work. Just to put the word in there, but I'll read them. I'm like, does it have anything to do with quantum? No, it doesn't. Or there's even last year there was or maybe it's 2 years ago, there was at RSA and some other conferences, there was a company running around with a quantum computer in some guy's backpack. And I was like, well, there's no such thing. People would email me, hey, is this thing real? And I'm like, no, because there's no such thing as a quantum computer.
He'd need a freezer on his back as well, wouldn't he?
Yeah, and I emailed him and I said, hey, you don't have a quantum computer. What do you have? He goes, oh, and it was funny. Their ad said, this quantum computer does what no other conventional computer can do. When I emailed him, they're like, yeah, we're using a regular laptop, but it uses quantum simulation. So I said, that it's not quantum. It does quantum simulation. That means it's not quantum. So you're saying that and it's running on a conventional computer. So what you're saying is a conventional computer can do what a conventional computer can't do. It was hilarious, but it had the word quantum, so everybody was taking pictures with it.
Although you say taking pictures, the only thing I took a picture of at RSA was the car from the Back to the Future, the DeLorean. I think that's what I got most excited about, Roger. Moving off track there a bit, but that's my age, perhaps. Aaron, let's try you now. How's it going?
All right. are we going? Can you hear me now?
We can hear you. Yeah, you're a bit glitchy, but we can hear you.
I'm glad to actually partially be heard. What's up?
I can't hear you. I can't hear you.
Yeah, you're very.
Damn.
Yeah, you know what's funny? These computers not so great.
No, it's funny for people who are meant to be technology experts. I'm normally the one with the really poor connection as well. It's normally me. We've got we live about a mile away from any neighbours in the countryside here in the UK, and there's no cables in as such. So we've got Starlink here, which had I placed my dish correctly, we've got a thatched roof, so it's very difficult to put it on the roof. Where we've got it on the shed, every time a tractor drives past, I lose reception. So if I drop out for 10 seconds, you'll know why. Aaron's just said he's got Starlink too, but he's not on it. Well, you need to get on it, Aaron. Maybe it will work then. So going back to what we were saying about, I suppose, the budgets that people spend and where the money's being thrown. You said it earlier. Social engineering has been the problem for the last 30 odd years. That the methods and techniques might get slightly more complex, and they think of different ways to do it. When are people going to start listening to that, and how do we make people start listening to that? Because if the CISOs aren't listening, where do we go?
Yeah, I've been trying for 20 years. Wrote a book about it, right? I wrote a white paper before that, and let me say it's tough to influence people, but I'm trying my part, and I share it with other people, and I hope they share it more. And I've given webinars to thousands of people on it. But it's funny. I was talking to Jen Easterly of Cybersecurity Infrastructure Security Agency in the United States. She's the leader, the director of that organization. I said, hey, you really do need to, when you're talking about defenses, bring social engineering defenses up higher in the guides. And it does seem like, I don't know if it's happening because I said it, but it seems to be happening more often. And just like right now, I'm even saying, hey, be careful, say phishing resistant MFA. And it seems to be being said a little bit more often. But, I was telling my kids, I'm trying, my kids are in the 30s now, but, I said, I've tried my life to make the internet more secure. And right now I can tell you all I've done after 30 years is move some bullet points up in a document to be higher, but I'll take it because that's all I got so far. But, as a thought leader, it does, seem to be frustrating. Like now I'm saying use phishing resistant MFA. That's a topic I've been pushing for a couple of years. And I'm now starting to see other people bring it up. And I'm hoping it's because they've read some of my stuff. I don't care why they're doing it, but and I'm trying to fight this. Don't say MFA fixes 99%. It's just ludicrous. So I hope I'm being an influencer. That's what all the kids want to be today, is an influencer, right?
The irony, right, Roger? So I've like I said, only been in the industry 2 years, and I've never even been on social media up until 16 months ago, for the simple reason I've always had an issue with sharing myself, my pictures of my kids and everything online. And I became a bit of a pariah within my friendship group for that, because everyone just thought I was being awkward, which I suppose I was a little bit, but there was some genuine concerns behind it. And then I watched the program on Cambridge Analytica, I think, back kind of when my life reset back 2018, 2019. And it kind of just reaffirmed that everything I'd thought all along was right. And I was really pleased I hadn't. But my youngest or my eldest boys have always been massive. They want to be YouTube influencers. It's been a huge thing. I've mocked them for that for years. And then the last year, all I've been doing is streaming on YouTube. So they mock me for that now, which is quite amusing. Aaron, sorry, go on, Roger.
No, go ahead, Aaron.
Yeah, so Aaron's dropped a question in the chat because he thinks, I don't know if we're going to get his voice working properly. So you can sit there and look pretty, Aaron, and I'll read the question out, all right? So do you think phish-resistant MFA can ever be phish-resistant?
That's a great question. Not really, not 100%, but security isn't binary, right? It's shades of gray along a continuum from no security to complete security. And so my push is there, and it's interesting, like in the United States, the US government says don't use phishable MFA, but it's 99% of what people are probably using. There are lots of forms that are less phishable. And I'm even calling upon vendors that have phishable MFA. Again, it's Microsoft, it's Google, it's Duo. that they can make changes in their technology to make it less phishable. So like a lot of times you hear about, sometimes it's small, like the FIDO, this is a YubiKey, and you hear FIDO. FIDO is the Fast Identity Online Alliance or whatever. It's a good thing. And FIDO is significantly less phishable. Can I hack FIDO keys and stuff other ways? Yeah, I can hack any MFA solution at least a handful of ways, if not 11 ways. I can hack the most secure MFA a bunch of different ways. Everything can be hacked. Everything can be socially engineered, but you can make it significantly harder to do. And so when I tell people, it's funny when I say use phishing resistant MFA, really what I'm saying right now, not to get into the weeds, is a really easy way to phish your MFA. Like if you get a code or something like that, is to send you to a fake website. You think you're going to the real website, but it's a fake website that then directs you to the real website. So to you, it looks like the real website, but really you're on what's called a man-in-the-middle proxy website. And then anything you type in can be captured by them, and they can capture the stuff coming back from your website, the real website, including what's called your access control token, which is really your driver's license. Hey, I've signed in. Well, 95% of MFA can be faked by that man-in-the-middle proxy site attack. And when I say use phishing resistant MFA, I'm really saying try not to make it so easy. The problem is that if I can send you an email and trick you to go into the wrong website, that's what I could do with your password. That's how I stole your password. And if I can do the exact same trick and steal your MFA codes or token, what have you gained? We've just told you move from passwords to MFA, and there's always a lot of problems and cost and training, blah, blah, blah. And people are frustrated. And I've just made you do this huge transition. And if your solution is just as easily compromisable as a password, why do all the work? So, and what's interesting, let's say like this YubiKey, which I like from Yubico. When you install these, if you install them in their default, it's phishable. But if you install it in the FIDO mode, which is just as hard, all you have to do is go, I'm going to install it in the FIDO mode. It's far less phishable. But people don't know. They don't know. They're not educated to know this has both modes. And hey, I can choose the FIDO mode. And it does take different configuration and setup options. But people like biometrics. They're like, oh, I'm using biometrics. It's so strong. It's really, biometrics are actually not nearly as strong as anyone thinks. Not nearly as strong as anybody's told. But on top of it, it can still be phished. Like the strength of your MFA, whether it's fingerprint, retina scan, code or whatever, it doesn't mean whether or not it's phishable. And if it's phishable, easily phishable, we shouldn't use it. So I want to make customers and buyers and CISOs saying, hey, just ask when you go shopping for MFA, ask them, is it easily phishable? Can it fall susceptible to this man-in-the-middle proxy attack? And if it does, tell them, I'm not buying it. And that way...
There though, Roger, if they're speaking to salespeople, no disrespect to salespeople, I am one. Not all of them will be completely honest with you about that, will they?
Yeah, so you might have to do your research. I actually have a LinkedIn page that literally says, here's all the MFA I know that is not phishable. And there's not a lot of it, but there are 10, and there are vendors. And let me say, there's probably many, many, many more vendors that are not phishable. But smart cards, FIDO, there's vendors like Beyond Identity and stuff that aren't phishable. There are solutions out there. So I'm trying my best to educate people. And this is what I tell people. It's funny. And Simon, you said it right before the beginning of the show. But when I tell people, oh, you should use MFA, I always just go use phishing resistant MFA. It's a really small change. And people usually go, what do you mean by phishing resistant? And we can start that conversation of education to help people. But don't say use MFA.
Until the last 5 minutes, I didn't really know what you meant by phishable MFA either. So it is quite scary, isn't it? The more you think about it, it's back to that education and awareness piece. I'm conscious that Aaron's not getting to say anything, and he has dropped another question in the chat, Aaron. So let me read that out for you. Do you ever see a truly non-phishable method? So with phones, email, or any source like Authenticator?
No. Again, but it's not. So it's not black or white. I think everything can be phished, but there are for sure less phishable forms. Like one of the less phishable forms is smart cards, or let's say like in the United States, they have something called a CAC card, Common Access Control Card. That gets, they actually, so in the US government with what's called a CAC card, Common Access Card, they literally, you have to basically give your blood and DNA to get that card these days. But you're meeting with a physical human that is tying your identity to this card, and that card is really hard to hack and phish. It's not easily phishable. But you know, again, there's beyond identity, One Cosmos, smart cards, FIDO. I've got a list again. I got a LinkedIn page called a list of good MFA that I like.
You've got that link, Roger, and you drop it in the private chat here. I can drop that in the comments.
Yeah, really. So that's the thing, is that you know, everything can be phished. Anything that says it can't be hacked or can't be phished, those vendors are lying, and they should probably be avoided. But there are solutions that are out there, you know, that are far less phishable. And again, just the baby step. The baby step is use a solution that can't be man in the middle attacked. And you know, like FIDO does that. It's just inherent. If you have a FIDO, and let me say, a lot more solutions out there are FIDO enabled. It's really weird though that people aren't using them. Like, you know, the really common ones, Microsoft Authenticator, Google Authenticator, and let me say, there's other ways like push-based authentication. That's where you get this little message you get sent to your phone going, "Are you logging in from Miami, Florida? Yes or no?" And in my book that I wrote a couple of years ago, I said I like push-based. It's called push-based MFA. I like it. Turns out about 30% of users will say yes, even when they're not logging in. And so it turns out that's a pretty horrible authenticator. But Microsoft and Google have responded by putting numbers on the logon screen that the user must know, either confirm or type in before they can say yes. So you're proving that you're actually logging in. And so a small change significantly improves the security of that option. And that's just what we need to do, is just drive vendors to, drive vendors to make changes that make their products more secure.
Okay, Aaron, let me unmute you and see with your camera off whether that's going to enable you to ask a question. Can you hear us?
You can hear me.
We can hear you. Yes, Aaron.
Well, that's amazing. I can speak. I mean, I feel like I'm pleased. Oh, good. Okay, so how's it going, Simon? Good to see y'all. I wish I was being.
Yeah, good to hear you.
It's good to be heard. So, yeah, finally. Okay, cool. Yeah, of course, I was throwing in my 2 cents. I'm sorry. Question. I love that comment yesterday where you said hovering over. Definitely just as effective as multi-factor. I mean, that's an all true. Yeah, it's just a matter of getting the users to hover over that link. So I guess where to go from now is the question. So yeah, I agree with non-phishable. I agree with everything. However, where are we going? I mean, there's always going to need a backup. There is no term in which a user is not, "Oh, I lost my phone. Oh, I lost this. Oh, I did this. I need a backup." So
are you talking about the lack of security around backups then, Aaron, as much as anything else as well? Is that what?
I think he means
Roger knows what I'm talking about, but
yeah, like suppose you're using this token and then all of a sudden you lose it, it gets broken, it's not working. Let me say that's actually happened. This is my work token, and it's happened a couple of times where it wasn't working. My USB ports weren't working on my laptop, or something like that. And that's true. And let me say, hackers will always take advantage. So any of the major players that you go with, Microsoft, Google, Duo, whatever, they do many times allow these resets and backup options, and they are abused. And most of the time, the backup options are far less secure than the MFA option. Like someone were like, "We'll send you a reset code to your phone," or or like I can use this, and my backup is the Google Authenticator. The Google Authenticator is less secure because it can be phished, where this can't be. I'm all right with backup options as long as they're not easily attacked. There are many. like some of the backup options are crazy. Like they're the password reset questions. What's your mother's maiden name? What's your favorite vet or something? And they're called personal knowledge questions.
Yeah.
Those should be outlawed, because your password or your MFA digital certificate could be trillions of things. But when they're like, what's your favorite car? There's only 100 car models in the whole world. And they don't change that much over time. And so and Google did a study and showed that like one out of every 40% of password reset questions could be guessed on the first try by a hacker.
I mean, they're still using them on the government sites here. We've still got the old classics. What's your mother's maiden name? Tell me where you were born. What's your father's first name? I'm not being funny. That.
I know,
and you're not telling me that data is. I mean, I'm guilty, especially years ago, of randomly filling in this information online on various different websites.
I mean, I can join a genealogy website for $90 a year and look that up for everybody in the world.
Yeah. Yeah.
McFly. I see Tom saying, Tom says, Roger, what do you think about PKI-based passwordless MFA? Is that phishable? It's a good question, Tom. In most cases, it's far less phishable. Just like I was talking about Aaron, everything's phishable. It's just not easily phishable. So people ask me, what do you think about passwordless? And let me say, I'm a believer in MFA, and some passwordless options are single factor. Like when these first came out, YubiKeys, I didn't like them because, and you can still do this, you insert them in your computer and you touch them. You don't have to require that someone also put in a PIN, but if all they do is insert it and touch it, that's single factor. It may look like two-factor, but if you're not required to put a second authentication factor in, a PIN or a password or something else, then it's really single factor. So I like password-based options that are FIDO-based. So Microsoft's rolling out a lot of new passwordless options that are FIDO-based. I like other passwordless options. FIDO isn't, FIDO's great. And I'm even doing the keynote at their Authenticate conference at the end of the year in Seattle, like I did last year. I love FIDO, but it's not the only solution. There are a lot of other solutions out there. But let me say this again. I don't like them if they're not multi-factor. If they're single factor, like biometrics where I swipe my fingerprint or I do my face. Well, we're in this, maybe those things are all right in the office. Like if I have to do a fingerprint to enter the door at my office, there's some physical risk that the attacker would be taking. But if I'm allowed to use passwordless, or if I'm allowed to use fingerprint or facial ID remotely, that means an attacker can do that and spend a lot of time to get it right. And let me say, I and other people, I've been paid to hack about 20 MFA products, including one project was to hack a bunch of fingerprint scanners. Everybody I know that has to hack fingerprint scanners, retina scanners, whatever, we fake it, like everybody. Like it's not just me, it's everybody that ever goes to test faking these things. And if they can be used remotely, then it's not good. So even with a fingerprint or a facial scan, I think there should be a PIN. There should be a knowledge-based question so that if somebody gets my fingerprint or somebody's faking my fingerprint on my retina, that they're, that's the whole reason for MFA. There's two factors, and because two factors, it makes it harder for an attacker to be able to compromise both factors. So
I think anything that's solely reliant upon technology is going to fail, in my opinion. I mean, you look at the advances in latex masks now, which I know can be used to get through facial scanners. It's not difficult to lift a fingerprint. I think anyone can Google that in 5 minutes. So I think whilst these things are brilliant, having that backup, having that second factor authentication is hugely important. But we're back to the same point, which is because everyone's got one now, everyone thinks they're all right.
Yeah. And it's like my fingerprints were stolen along with 5.8 million other people in the United States, Chinese advanced persistent threat a couple of years ago. I say a couple of years ago, it's probably 2015 now. They stole all the fingerprints of anybody that ever applied for U.S. government security clearance, like 5 million people, including my wife when she was a teenager working at a shipyard. Everybody that ever applied for top secret clearance, CIA, FBI, the Chinese got them. How can any system that remotely asks me for my fingerprint know it's me versus Chinese advanced persistent threat? Yeah. You can't. And that's why you must require this second factor that I know that I've set up to prevent these sort of attacks. And and not to go like, how you have to type in the code, the 4-digit code or the 6-digit code. Almost all implementations of those multi-factor authentication things allowed unlimited guessing. And when the first version, like in the password world, if I type in the password wrong 3 times or 6 times, it locks me out. But for some reason in MFA world, at least in the first implementation, all the vendors, not all, but a lot, I mean, really serious vendors that and trust, all allowed unlimited guessing. And you're like, why? They just, I don't know. I don't know why they didn't learn the lesson of passwords. So I would want, you want to have what's called rate throttling, so people can't just guess in perpetuity.
We've got a question here. I don't know if you're getting paid enough by any company to answer this one, Roger.
So which authenticator do you prefer? So I don't, if it's a what's called a one-time password, you get a number, I don't like them. I use them, like we all have to, like it was funny, as people thought passwords are going away and we're gonna use MFA. You know what the reality is? We've all now got more passwords than ever, and we now have 10 MFA options. I got an MFA option for my bank that's different than my stocks, that's different than my company. Like now it's just worse than ever. But so which authenticators do I like? I don't like one-time password ones, but I use them all the time. Sometimes I have to use a fingerprint scanner in different places. I don't like it, but I have to use it. But what are the ones that I like? Again, it's in my list of MFA that I like. And even like biometrics. Biometrics, your fingerprint's unique in the world. The way that biometric scanners work with your fingerprint is far from unique. Like literally, probably 1 million people in this world will match your fingerprint the way that these scanners work. If not 1 million, let's say tens of thousands. Like when I went to work at KnowBe4, we had a fingerprint scanner. I was like employee 300, and my fingerprint matched somebody that was already in the company. And if you talk to anybody that deploys that's had to do fingerprint biometrics across a large system of 100,000 people, there's tons of people that match. And there's always people that, whatever reason, they can't come in on any given day and have their fingerprint match. They can't do it 2 scans in a row. The same thing with retina scan. There's just weird people that it doesn't work with, so they have to be given an alternative.
Sweaty fingers, Roger. That's what it is.
Yeah.
Sweaty fingers.
But it's but this is what I say about biometrics. They're good enough in most cases, because like on my phone, I do biometrics. Who's going to steal my phone? Who cares what secrets are on my phone that somebody's going to start doing a fingerprint hack against my phone? They could, but most people aren't. So it's good enough. But if I was to use fingerprints to protect if I had super secure secrets on my phone, I would want a fingerprint plus a PIN. Right? Because the fingerprint alone really isn't secure enough to protect very valuable data.
No, Kerry's just mentioned in the chat actually that he used to work in a cold area of a store in retail, and he could never read his finger when his fingers were cold. And I suppose it's the contraction and the expansion of the skin, isn't it? In the heat, which obviously if these scanners aren't that good. Like
or if people paint or go fishing over the weekend, or people that play musical instruments, it's and again, the industry's like, it's super, your fingerprint's unique in the world. That's true. But even though we don't really know that's for true, it's probably true. But the way that the devices work, no, turns out lots of things match. As a matter of fact, I have somebody email me every week or two to tell me that their kid, their baby, their toddler walked by their Windows Hello for Business laptop, and it logged the kid in as the adult. And when I say, send me the picture of the kid, it doesn't look anything like the parent, but the scanners and the way that they're reading thought they were the same person. But but that doesn't mean you can't use Windows Hello, because an attacker stealing your laptop with Windows Hello enabled would still have to somehow come about learning your face and trying to fake it. They don't know that the hacker doesn't have a kid that has your face print. And on top of this, if they want to break into you, trying to break your Windows Hello is significantly harder than just sending you a phishing email. Most of the time, they're just going to send you a phishing email.
It's low hanging fruit, isn't it? It's a numbers game. And I think for people who aren't in the industry, there's this misconception that it's certain companies that get targeted constantly. And don't get me wrong, there obviously are. malicious actors targeting specific companies, but most of it's a spray and play hope, isn't it? You know, send out enough of them, send out enough phishing emails, and we'll get something back.
Yeah, Aaron just emailed and said, isn't touching this so this would be one factor, isn't touching it the second factor? Well, that's the way it's sold, but but anybody can touch this. It doesn't require my finger to be the second factor, so it's not. It's a factor. It's not an authenticating factor.
That's crazy, isn't it? Well, while we're on it, actually, password managers then. So I use a password manager because I used to be one of these people who had the same password made up a combination of my children and various numbers for everything for a long time. And I use LastPass without wanting to drop a name because it's one that I had recommended to me. However, I think I might have found a bit of a flaw with that. And I'm not going to mention it online live now, but I will talk to you about it afterwards. But I've lost my really long kind of what do they call it? Can't think
password,
of the word.
Encryption key, recovery key.
Yeah, your long passphrase that if you forget your password, you've got to put it in. Well, I forgot that, and I've gone through a reset process that isn't terribly secure. So I don't know if you found it.
You can actually export them all, starting to do it all over again, and then re-import. Now, and let me say that's always I like password managers. My password advice is use phishing resistant MFA where you can to protect valuable data. Use a password manager because an 12 character truly random password is unguessable, uncrackable that we know of, even if they get your hash. A human created password, it only takes, I have friends that are cracking 18 character human created passwords every day for a living. I don't know anybody that's cracked a 20 character human created password, but we know that like every year that's going to get longer. It used to be, I'd say, make sure you use an 8 character password and then 10 and 12, and now it's 20. Nobody wants to type a 20 character password. I don't. So what you should do is use a password manager. Most of them are the good ones, allow you to MFA protect them. So you should have an MFA log into your laptop, an MFA log into your password manager, and then let the password manager handle the rest of the password stuff and use MFA where you can. That's my advice for everybody. I like password managers. There are risks to them, but every risk you tell me about a password manager, such as single point of failure, the risk that they offset by using them is orders of magnitude higher.
Yeah, of course. I'm conscious we haven't got long left, and Aaron's just dropped something in the chat that I was then going to actually bring up, which is the future of the quantum future, I suppose. And we mentioned it briefly offline earlier. And there's been a lot of stuff in the press the last couple of weeks with regards to work in the US that's going on with regards to the 4 different algorithms, etc. And back to our comment earlier about the man with the backpack with the freezer. This is all very well, isn't it, what we're talking about now? But as soon as these become mainstream, then what? What's the future bring, Roger?
Yeah, so most people believe that soon we will have sufficiently capable, that's the word, sufficiently capable quantum computers that can crack our everyday asymmetric encryption, RSA, Diffie-Hellman, elliptic curve, cryptography, ECC. Those are the 3 main ones. And that pretty much is 90% of the world is this asymmetric encryption. And quantum computers can have the protective abilities of symmetric encryption, which is AES and other algorithms like that. Well, to get the protective symmetric encryption that you need to stop quantum attacks, you only need to have a key size of like 198 and 192 bits, or really we say you should have 256 bits. So if you have any symmetric encryption with 128 bit keys, knock it up to 256. That protects you. The asymmetric ones, when you get sufficiently capable quantum computers, are going to just break all of them. It's either been done. I put a 15% chance that it has been done, but if not, likely within the next couple of years, although we keep saying that every couple of years, but I don't think we used to say it's 10 years off, it's 10 years off. Now everybody's like, it's a couple of years off. And I don't think it would be surprising to any quantum person if you were to tell them that we'd actually broken it already. That's how close we are. Like the announcement of where sufficiently capable quantum computers are going to be able to crack it, it would be a surprise. It would not be people going, oh my God, I can't. But they're like, yeah, we knew it was going to happen. We've been talking about it. But this is what I'll say is, ready for this? Everybody, if you're falling asleep here, pay attention here. Every single person on this call is going to be in the middle of a multi-year post-quantum, is what they call it, post-quantum migration. Every company, every organization is going to be hiring staff to help the company migrate from quantum susceptible ciphers to quantum resistant ciphers, which, as Aaron just pointed out in the chat there, NIST just released 4 finalists finally, the first 4 finalists of what's called post-quantum encryption. We're all going to be upgrading our computers, our devices, our hardware, our software. Most companies within the next year or two are going to be in the beginning of an expensive multi-year post-quantum migration, and almost none of the companies know about it.
Just sounds like an absolute disaster waiting to happen. It also feels like, as an industry, maybe not as a whole, but certainly in parts, it's being widely ignored until it becomes mainstream. And that to me seems suicidal, really, because, you know, like you say, there's going to come a point where everyone suddenly has to change everything. Where, I mean, we've got a so-called skills shortage in the industry as it is anyway, or definitely a recruitment issue in the industry with matching people up for roles. Never mind the OT space, where most of the people who are experts in the OT security space, their knowledge will go with them when they retire in 10 years' time. There's another problem, that we're not bringing anyone through for that. It just seems like we're, as an industry, not doing ourselves any favors at the moment.
Yeah, you know, so, and let me say the biggest part is identifying. You've got to say, okay, what data do we have that needs to be protected more than a couple of years? That makes it a candidate for post-quantum protection. Then you have to figure out what's the encryption that's around it that protects it. That's the hardest part. I call it a data protection inventory. I've written about it in my book. I've got a book I wrote on this called Cryptography Apocalypse. But I wrote for the Cloud Security Alliance a free paper. The Cloud Security Alliance it's called Practical Preparations for a Post-Quantum World. Let me go get the link for you. But that's a free download for anybody. Yeah, let me just get that real quick. But essentially, what everybody needs to do to start preparing. Here I go. I've almost got it. Here we go. So you don't have to buy my book. You can just read this paper here. But everybody, the hard part. Oops, there we go. The hard part is identifying where the data is, what encryption protects it. Like your laptop has a certain encryption for boot up and all that stuff, and Windows has a certain encryption protection. And let me say, Microsoft's going to upgrade the encryption for Windows and stuff. But what about many times when you find the data, you're not even going to know what encryption protects it, or maybe the person that coded that left. How do you figure that out? And what keys? So you're going to have to, for every piece of data you need to protect, you need to find the effective strength of the cryptographic algorithm that protects it and the key size. And then you have about 6 different ways you can protect that data, including using post-quantum ciphers as recently selected by NIST and other people. But the hardest part, what's going to take a year or years in most companies, is just finding the data and figuring out what is the effective encryption that protects it. And then, okay, how are we going to fix this? Are we going to upgrade the encryption? Are we going to take that data off the network? Are we going to use physical isolation? Are we going to use quantum encryption distribution, quantum key distribution? What are we going to do? But the first step, the data protection inventory, is where's your data and what's it currently protected by? That's going to take most organizations a year to years to do, depending on their size.
I think a lot of it will be physical protection, won't it? Unplugging it and leaving it in a locked room, I think, might be the cheapest way for a lot of people. There's lots of people watching in the chat before we wrap up who are either in the industry looking to raise the game a bit or looking to break in. Going back to your comment about the future, where would you advise people focus their, I suppose, learning extra skills to be ready for this, Roger?
There's a lot of ways to make money in the industry. I'm a big believer in work at something you love. Like I've been able to work at something I love, and I get to change. Like every 5 or 10 years, I kind of change what I do and I follow my natural interest. So I think that's a great thing to do. I don't think it can hurt you to learn some type of programming scripting language. If you're still at a practitioner level, I don't know how to program anymore. I used to. COBOL programmer and even Java for a while, and assembler is where I did most of my stuff. I told people I could disassemble a virus really well, but I couldn't write Notepad, right? It's a very particular skill set. But I think anybody, if you know computer security well, and then you have the ability to then script things or program things, that makes you extra valuable. Or learn about business and business processes, or about accounting. If you can add something outside the computer technical realm to your skill set, that makes you additionally valuable.
I think all sage advice, Roger. And the other thing I'd add into that is there's a lot of people pivoting from different careers. And you pivoted a while back from obviously accountancy, finance. I came from financial services. There's loads of stuff that you can bring across. I mean, the governance, risk and compliance in financial services sector, whilst it's different, the structure is the same. And if you understand how that works, I think it's easier to maybe bring that across into this industry. The problem I see again is back to the companies with the budgets who are selling the training and focusing people on areas. A bit like me, I fell for this. I wanted to be a pen tester because I wanted to be a James Bond villain, break into things and get paid for it because it had been glamorized to that. And the other side, you see, want to be blue team. But what we really need is, again, back to the education and awareness piece, which is what we're trying to do in the InfoSec Live community, is to make people aware that there are over 50 different roles in the industry that can suit all different, not only personality types, but different types of divergences as well. I mean, I've got ADHD. So the fact that I was thinking about being a pen tester and can't sit still or shut my mouth for 5 minutes was probably not a good idea. However, there are roles where people with different skill sets can adapt and fit in quickly, isn't there? Aaron, you're smirking at me there, I see.
Yeah, it's funny. I've got long-term friends, and some of them are people I could not put in front of people, but they are the best minds, and I wanted them on my project, but you weren't letting them talk to the CISO because they were too blunt. They would say things like, "Your company sucks. Your security sucks," and maybe that was true, but you can't have that person saying the CIO. You've got to be a little bit different in how you approach that. So you're right. I think there's lots of, as a matter of fact, Simon, I laugh. I was a pen tester, right, for 20 years. I loved it. But my problem was every time I found a really big hack at a company, I immediately wanted to go tell everybody in the company. And they're like, "No, Roger, you must shut up and put it in a report that we put out 30 days from." That was the toughest part of that assignment, was me to just keep my mouth shut.
Yeah, Roger, it's the biggest struggle in my life, as you can probably tell from this discussion that we've had, just keeping my mouth shut. It's silence is golden. Listening in anything is super important, and the ability to actually shut up and listen, not just have a conversation, but a true dialogue with people where you're actually both talking about something you're interested in, rather than both of you waiting until the other person's finished speaking before talking about what you want to do. And unfortunately, there's a lot of that goes on, not just in this industry, but everywhere. And we are out of time, folks. We're about a minute away. Aaron, I'm absolutely gutted that we haven't been able to have you on here for a chat. I know Roger is super, super busy, but maybe if we asked him really nicely at some point in the future, we can try doing this again with a bit more of a stable internet connection, Roger.
I'm in. I'm already in.
Thank you. And for those of you who haven't noticed, Roger's also putting his email in the chat. So if you have got any questions and you want to reach out to him individually, please do reach out. Likewise, not that I've got any technical knowledge, but if you want me to talk incessantly at you for 10 minutes, drop me a message. I'll happily jump on a call. And likewise with Aaron, I'm sure Aaron will be open to connections. Aaron, do you want to drop your LinkedIn link in the chat here for me? And then I'll just put that in the chat before we wrap things up. But everyone,
Roy, your Python FTW comment, priceless. Love it.
Roy, you're amazing. Roy's actually big shout out to Roy. Roy is my biggest supporter in the InfoSec Live community. He helps me day to day with the running of it, and not just the running of it, but also the helping the members in the community, what it's all about. So massive thanks to Roy. Massive thanks to Roger. Let me put Aaron's email in here. Massive thanks to both Roger and Aaron. That's me trying to do two things at once, which when you're a male is very difficult. Thank you so much,
Simon. Thank you, Simon, for creating an industry and trying to get the word out. That's all. That's the best that we can do. That's why we're here, to help make it better. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. No, thank you so much, everyone. It's been an absolute pleasure. For those of you that haven't, please do like and subscribe to the content. I'll play out a quick stinger and end the stream. Again, thank you, everyone. See you all soon.